Most people lose money every single day. And, I'm not talking about bad investments or dropping a 20 on the sidewalk. I'm talking about hundreds, thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars literally slipping right through your fingers. Why? Well, it's not because you lack skills, and it's certainly not because you aren't valuable at what you do. It's simply because you don't know how to negotiate. Welcome to The Explainer, because today we are going to change that entirely.
We're looking at this hidden trap that almost all of us fall into, usually without even realizing it. We just walk through life accepting the numbers handed to us, right? Society kind of conditions us to feel like pushing back is, rude or confrontational. But the reality, backed by decades of research from places like the Harvard Program on Negotiation, is that accepting the status quo is literally the single most expensive mistake you can make.
I mean, who hasn't felt at least one of these relatable pains? You accepted a low salary because you were just thrilled to get the offer. You didn't ask for a raise because the timing didn't feel quite right. Maybe you overpaid for a car because haggling felt super awkward. Or you just felt weird asking for what you're actually worth. Leaving money on the table is an incredibly common, really uncomfortable experience, but it doesn't have to be yours anymore.
Let's jump into Section 1, Psychology over Aggression.
Behavioral research over at the Berlin School of Economics and Law reveals this totally fascinating insight. Negotiation is a mutual persuasion process. It's a psychological game. Researchers highlight that negotiators are highly vulnerable to psychological influence. We all have cognitive biases, these little mental shortcuts that lead to predictable behaviors. Once you understand that negotiation is really just two people trying to persuade each other's psychology, the fear completely vanishes. It's not a fight, it's just a puzzle.
Establishing that winning mindset begins with tactical empathy. Championed by former FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss, tactical empathy means intentionally empathizing with the other party to win their trust and then bringing them over to your side so you can collaboratively solve their problem. Voss suggests really cool psychological techniques like mirroring, which is simply repeating the last three words the other person said to make them feel secure and heard. Or, get this, deliberately baiting a no by asking, "Is this a bad time to talk?" Because actually saying no makes the other person feel safe and in control.
Okay, Section 2, High-Impact Negotiation Tactics.
Tactic number 1, the first offer rule. There is a famous cognitive bias known as anchoring. Research shows that the human brain relies way too heavily on the first piece of information it hears. Whoever sets the first number controls the expectations and the entire game. If there's ambiguity about a price, the other party will use your first offer as a yardstick. So the rule here is to anchor high or low, depending on if you're buying or selling, because that initial number heavily dictates the final settlement. Now, if they make the first offer, use this 3-step playbook. Hear the offer, utilize strategic silence, and make a counteroffer. Never, ever accept immediately. When you hear their number, literally stop talking. Silence is an absolute power move. The classic getting to yes framework tells us to use strategic silences to draw the other party out. In practice, you might even use a slight flinch, just acting a tiny bit surprised. This nonverbal cue signals, "Whoa, that is too high," without you having to say a single aggressive word. Then you counteroffer.
Here's the thing, amateurs argue positions, but masters ask what and how questions. The Harvard Program on Negotiation emphasizes focusing on underlying interests, not rigid positions. If you argue, you just hit a brick wall. Instead, use open-ended questions like, "How can we make this work?" Or, "What are the biggest challenges you're facing with this budget?" This keeps you entirely in control of the conversation without inviting any conflict. It actually forces the other side to pause and help you solve the problem.
Let's look at Section 3, Master the Walkaway.
BATNA. Developed by negotiation researchers Roger Fisher and William Ury, this stands for the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Basically, what is your best, independent course of action if this specific deal falls through? Professional negotiators consider the walkaway outcome as the primary source of relative power in any room. If you know exactly what your alternative is, like shopping at another dealer, taking a different job, keeping your current phone, you negotiate with total confidence. Without a clear BATNA, you are negotiating blindly and are highly likely to accept a terrible deal out of pure fear.
Section 4, Real-Life Survival Guide. Let's make this practical. Let's put this theory into practice with some real-life scenarios. First up, salary negotiation. Use the anchor high tactic. Do your research, find the market data, and make the first strong offer to set that yardstick. Next, dealing with a tough freelancer client. Rely on your BATNA and strategic silence. If they lowball your project rate, utilize that silence. Let it hang in the air.
If they don't budge, your BATNA gives you the power to walk away rather than working for pennies. Buying a laptop or a phone? Use the what and how questions in the flinch. When the salesperson gives you a price, look surprised, pause, and ask, how can we make this work for my budget? And finally, an office promotion? This is all about tactical empathy. You have an ongoing relationship here. Use mirroring, understand your boss's pressures, and frame your promotion not as a favor to you, but as the perfect solution to their operational problems.
Because ignoring these principles leads to what we call fatal frictions. Just look at the real-world costs. Netflix faced an absolute massive subscriber revolt back in 2011 from an overreaching price hike. Yellow Corporation pushed incredibly rigid labor talks that ultimately ended in bankruptcy. And even Elon Musk faced huge legal fallout from that hasty funding-secured tweet. Unchecked ego and poor preparation, they will always cost you big time.
Which brings us to Section 5, claiming your true worth.
Because here's the hard truth. You don't get what you deserve in this world, you get what you negotiate. The market rewards those who advocate for themselves, using connection, preparation, and these smart psychological tactics. Silence, anchoring, and knowing your walk away are your absolute ultimate leverage. So the next time someone slides a number across the table to you, will you just accept what they think you deserve, or will you negotiate your true worth?